We got Mike says, how have you automated your reporting? It's the most annoying part of my month. Brian says, do you really have to do client approvals for content creation such as the ad copy so they interfere and undermine your expertise, delays? Any thoughts? Travis says, what sort of profit percentage are you guys seeing on seven figures? It has happened. So welcome back, everybody. We got an exciting another weekly Q&A here where we're talking about all things agency and growth, and you guys bringing your amazing sort of high value questions and just way of approaching the world and building this business. Been a little bit of a fun little adventure. I shaved my face so I look like a baby face. Fun little fact, I just turned on a little quiet little background music, which is how I like to work. Music without lyrics because it helps me to function. But my kids do not believe me when I tell them they came from my balls. So I named my phone You Came From My Balls, so that every time I turn on my Bluetooth speaker, which is how we listen to music in our house, it goes, connected to You Came From My Balls. So anyways, enough about the shenanigans. I don't have anything in particular to talk about, just as a little announcement. So let's get rolling with the Q&A. Let's get into the good stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Frankie Finn proudly brings you our weekly Q&A. Ba-dum-bum-bum-ba-dum. Whoosh. All right, cool. Who's up first? Let's see what we got. We got Mike says, how have you automated your reporting? It's the most annoying part of my month. So I'll tell you, Mike, I have a long history of also feeling like reporting was the most annoying part of my month. Not just because of the reporting itself, but I used to do a lot of SEO, and clients really just had no fucking idea what we were doing. And I tried every single reporting tool on the face of the earth, and what I would do is, make all these fancy graphs and charts and send them to clients, and they would always say the same thing. They would say, well, this looks great, but what does this even mean? How are we doing? Are we winning? Are we losing? When are we going to win? All those kind of questions. And I'll tell you what switched it for us is I used to have to do a lot of client calls explaining the damn reports. In fact, I would probably estimate that I spent 50 to 100 hours a month just explaining the damn SEO reports. When you have a lot of clients and you're doing it at scale, that's a real issue. Shed a little tear for that notion. So what I eventually figured out is that I had a client, we were trying to catch up to explain the reports, and he said, maybe you could just send me a little audio or video. And so I made a little report, and the report said, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it, here's how it's going, and here's what you can expect next. Those 4 things. And I'll tell you, that alone, all of a sudden, after like 10 years, it finally clicked that agency clients got it. Now, I didn't immediately, wasn't smart enough to know what I had in that moment. But a couple of more times I would make videos for clients who were like hard to schedule meetings with, and they loved it. And they would say, can you just do that? So I'd say, here's what we're doing. Here's why we're doing it. Here's how it's going. Here's what you can expect next. And all of that, by the way, took 2-3 minutes, and it was in a screen capture video. If I was to redo that today, what I would do is I would have an account manager actually follow that exact process. Now, part of that, if you want to make that more organized so that like clients get it faster and ultimately understand like they should be spending money with you, which is a big part of the reporting, is to justify your own fees and to show them like, hey, you're getting an ROI of this, is I would already have scripted the here's what we're doing, because you're pretty much doing the same thing month after month after month. The here's how it's going, I would have some kind of dashboard like an agency analytics, or some of you guys use NinjaCAD, or you can use Go High Level. It doesn't really matter what you use. The idea is you want to show them in a single picture all the important numbers. So like return on investment, how much they've spent, how many clicks, how many leads, how much you're paying for whatever is important to what it is you're doing, like showing them in a single dashboard. Here's why we're doing it. I would have, again, some standardized responses to that. And then here's what you can expect next is actually just the expectation framework that I wrote about in this old book right here. the old beyond the agency box. So like, here's what you can expect next is just like, these are the results, this is the time, this is the cost, this is the communication you're going to get from me, and this is what I need from you in that time period. That's really all it is to that. And the more you follow that format, what you'll find is clients get it easier. Now, it depends. For those of you guys who are listening who are not doing SEO, the truth is reporting and expectation setting is proportional to how long your shit takes to work. So in other words, like, SEO is the ultimate delayed gratification, especially like sometimes I would get a client who'd be in like New York City, and if you're going after downtown Manhattan, it's going to be harder to rank than if you're going after Frog Balls, Arkansas. Ergo, it would sometimes take me like a year to actually rank them, and like we would make continuous progress and ascent up the Google ladder, but at the end of the day, they would see no measurable phone calls and business for sometimes as much as 12 months. And so I learned that in that process, you have to set expectations over and 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 over until it actually works. The flip side of that is some of you guys got stuff like database reactivation. Well, you got a database reactivation, like, I don't know, you send an email, you'll know by Friday whether or not the thing worked. And so you can get away with almost minimal expectation setting. So the reporting and things like that, it requires more explanation and more complexity and more repetition depending on how like long your shit takes to work, in a nutshell. So the quicker and faster it is, the more you're going to find you can just like do it quickly and easy. But you know, if you got that delayed gratification where it might be 6 months before they actually really start seeing the windfalls of what it is you're doing, you got to set those expectations over and over and over. It's not just a one-time thing. And the more you incorporate that into your reporting, the better it is. And that's what's worked the best for us. Here's what we're doing. Here's why we're doing it. Here's how it's going. Here's what you can expect next. So hope that's helpful. And like I said, you guys can have an account manager or a VA or somebody do that. It does not have to be you making all those reports. Although, to be honest with you, I like some of the front-facing client stuff. So like historically, I have done those when I probably should not have. Jake says, how do you come up with the systems that you use to operate your agency? Okay, so this is a whole quagmire topic of like, systems is like a precursor. For those of you guys who don't know, eventually, like when you build systems, you can run your business like a franchise and ultimately remove yourself. In the same way that like Ray Kroc does not have to go to every McDonald's and make sure they're doing a hamburger right, because they have systems, right? They have step-by-step processes, and they've made it super easy for people to implement their Big Mac process across tens of thousands of locations, probably more than that even, worldwide, maybe even like 100,000 plus locations. I don't know how many McDonald's it has. Somebody can Google that, tell me the real answer. But point being is franchises have very, very high success rates in general because they have very, very high systems and processes, and therefore like the way things, once they find something that works, they clone it like 10,000 times. So for those of you guys who've never been that process, where do you begin that? Well, I'm going to tell you, the first thing there are a couple prerequisites you have to begin the systems journey, and one of those is you have to have like a clear, defined, repeatable deliverable. So that means if you're doing custom generalist work, you should not be building systems and processes because it just ain't gonna fucking work, right? Like if one day you're making a website and then the next day you're doing SEO for a dentist and then you get hired for pay-per-click and then you're a content writer and then you're a video editor, your systems won't make any sense. As where like the first time I actually built systems, by the way, was in our second agency where I did personal injury lawyer marketing using Facebook ads. Well, we were running the same ads for everybody. We were running the same landing pages for everybody. We were running the same reports for everybody. We were running the same like follow-up system for everybody. So when I'm like creating something for that, it's repeatable and therefore it makes sense to have a system. Now, there is a prerequisite to building systems, which is like you want to actually eliminate waste. And the example I think about this is, a conversation I had with Kyle, who's actually the very first Wolfpack mastermind member. And he said to me, I want to scale up my SEO. I know I need to build systems. I know I need to build processes. But SEO is a complex deliverable, man. Like there's a lot of fucking systems and process to build. You got to have Google reviews and Google business and updating the page and updating the site and updating images and how do you optimize this and how do you optimize that and building backlinks and writing content and updating the client, creating reports, et cetera, et cetera. It's a lot of moving pieces. And so what we figured out is I was talking to him and he said, one of the biggest problems I have is when clients give me their website, it's almost always a shitty website that's not optimized. And so we have to build them something new because it's easier than just trying to fix the shit they got. And so I spent 3-4 months building a new website when I could just be ranking. And then I asked him the magic question, is like, what actually like moves the needle and drives the results? And he said the Google business profile, the GBP, as you guys like to call it. I'm old. I call it a Google Maps listing because, you know, that's how I know it. Or Google Places if you want to go. But I've been through many iterations of that. But anyways, the Google listing. And I said, well, if that's what's actually driving the rankings, why don't you double down on that and build systems and processes around that and just forget fucking with all their websites, since that's not even moving the needle anyway. And so what happened is, then when we built the systems and processes, the whole thing scaled much, much better. But where most people try to begin is like, let's scale the complexity we already have. And actually, you want to simplify as much as humanly possible before you build a single system or process. Now, the next thing after you've simplified it is what I call the brain dump. You like literally just have to write down everything you're doing. So in our Facebook ad agency, that looked like, well, we need to figure out our ads. We need to figure out targeting. We need to figure out how to set it up. We need to figure out the creatives. We need to figure out the landing pages. We need to figure out how to like do the retargeting part of it. We needed to figure out the email follow-up, and we also had a book that we optimized for clients. But that's really it. There's like 10 moving pieces, right? And then once we figured out all those 10 moving pieces, then we built a system and process, which is a fancy way of, by the way, just saying a set of instructions. That's all that really is. It's just like a do this, then that, then that, then that, and follow these steps until you're done, right? It's really just a detailed set of instructions that somebody else can walk in and follow, even if they don't know the task and are not familiar with it. And it's detailed, right? It has screenshots, and this is highlighted here, or it has a video that walks you through it step by step. Think like a lot of the tutorial videos you would see on YouTube. And that is really it for systems and processes. There's some things that can speed that along. But if you've never done it before, like that's really the process, is get specific enough that you have a repeatable deliverable, eliminate a lot of the garbage, then brain dump everything you got to do, and then start making sets of instructions for all of it. And the sets of instructions, by the way, the first time you do this can be really, really overwhelming. So what I recommend is just like start with one or two things that you're doing all the fucking time that you don't want to be doing, and build a system for it so you can ultimately remove yourself. And then what you'll find is like Jeff Hunter calls these freedom files, which I think is great. Instead of an SOP or a standard operating procedure is what it stands for. A freedom file, right? You have a documentation so that somebody else can do it your way without you having to stand over their shoulder and do it. Just like Ray Kroc doesn't have to watch over everybody making a Big Mac. He's got a process that guides, here's how to make the perfect Big Mac again and again, time and time again. But in doing so, he's able to step back and remove himself. So you really want to think about like getting your business to run like a franchise. And what will happen, by the way, first time you create systems and processes, don't be surprised to find out it's like a 6-month journey. But when you're finished, all of a sudden, all that misery will pay off. And what will happen is you can go to the beach or wherever your happy place is, maybe the brothel or the drug dealer's house. I don't know, no judgment here. Wherever you guys go, that's your happy place, or maybe you just want to sit home and watch Netflix, but you can know that things are getting done right in the background systematically because people are following your processes and your systems. And then ultimately, obviously, you want to put that into a project management, have somebody responsible for it that can execute that time and time again. But that's really how you come up with the systems that use your agency, is you already have systems. They're just here. You need to get them out and onto, paper, and then ultimately into a computer system that people can follow. And then you can potentially even bring in some automation and things like that, although that's not how we do it personally. Brian says, do you really have to do client approvals for content creation such as the ad copy so they interfere and undermine your expertise, delays? Any thoughts? Brian, I feel your pain because I can't tell you the number of times where clients over the years have rewritten ads, and always 100 times out of 100, that ad performs worse than had they not touched it. And the one who gets blamed, you get blamed for their ads they wrote that don't work. So here's what I wish I understood many years ago. And a lot of the best stuff that I learned about this stuff, just so you guys know, I did not learn in the agency space. I learned in the legal space. And one of the lawyers said it to me, like really communicated the power of expectation settings, is he said to me, most clients who come to me have never been in a car accident, so they don't know what the legal process entails. They don't know how long it takes. They don't know what it's supposed to cost. They don't know whether I'm doing a good job or a bad job. And so a lot of it, they're just looking to me, and the more I set expectations right, the more like that guides that process right. So what I wish I knew years ago is that you can create client compliance with expectations, okay? And so what you're experiencing is a symptom of the fact that you haven't adopted a frame, which I call the benevolent alpha. And the benevolent alpha is basically, if I could give it to you in a nutshell, it's like, here's how shit's going to go down. Are you cool with that? And what happens is, usually, if you say, here's how shit's going to go down, are you cool with that? They have no objections, and then it doesn't make sense. So what happens is somewhere along the journey, you have made it okay for clients to need to approve stuff like that. Versus saying, hey, we're going to put shit out there, and it's not always going to be perfect, and there will be mistakes, but if you'd like us to update it and change things, we can do that after the fact. But what I ask is not for you to sit here and rewrite your own ads, because that's not how we work. Is that a problem for you? And if they say no, then it wouldn't make sense for them to try and rewrite their ad 5 minutes later. Like if you say, hey, we're only open till 5 o'clock, is that a problem for you? And they say no, then why would they call you at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, right? It wouldn't make sense. So I wish I knew this earlier, that client, so this, if I could put this out on a spectrum, 10% of clients are really cool and easygoing because that's just who they are. 10% of clients are assholes and they're dicks and they're motherfuckers just because that's how they are. 80% of them, the vast majority, will steer the directions your expectations set them. So for example, I'll give you an example of this done badly is we don't realize we were doing this. I got hired as a consultant back in the day, and I remember I was there to audit law firm phone calls. And this person had somebody on the call who was like considering using them for a divorce. And the lawyer answered all the questions, and he was super helpful, and he was super nice, and super informative, and friendly. And then at the end of it, the person said, so what do we do next? And the lawyer got all of a sudden like what I would call like a weak frame, and they said something like, well, kind of depends on what you want to do. And the person said, oh, okay. All right, I guess I'll call you back. And so I could hear in that person had never been through a divorce. They don't know what the process entails. They don't know what the next step is. And they were looking to be led. They were looking for a benevolent alpha to come in and say, all right, here's what we're going to do. I estimate in your case we're going to need 100 hours. That's going to cost you probably about $10,000 total. We start with a $25, $100 retainer off the bat. Is that a problem for you? That'll cover X number of hours. To begin with, the first thing we're going to get started with here is filing this paperwork. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to try and meet with your spouse and negotiate about the house and kids because you said those are the most important things to you. Is there any problem with that? And so people are silently looking to be led, especially in processes that A, they don't know enough about, and B, don't want to know anything about. And so if you come in here and you say, well, do you like my content? Is it okay? Then that's what they're going to do. They're going to want approvals, and they're going to nitpick you. And the whole process will bottleneck as you wait weeks and weeks and weeks for them just to look at shit. But if you just say, hey, we're going to make shit, we're going to put it out for you, and we're going to just go do that. And I understand, like, you have to understand, like, this is imperfect action. So some of the time we're going to put out stuff that you're not going to 100% love. But at the end of the day, the collective effort of all of it is going to work. Is that a problem for you? They're going to say, not a problem. So I say this to you because I mentioned this. I learned the best stuff from attorneys on this. They are looking for you to lead them and tell them what's supposed to happen. And I'll tell you, the place you want to get on the same page, 5 things, again, expectations, which is probably the single biggest mistake I made for years and years of business. What results are you going to get? So you're putting out content. What's going to happen with it? Time. How long is it going to take for them to start seeing it work? Cost. How much money are they going to have to spend? Communication. What are you going to hear from me? Right? So if you set the communication expectation that I need you to update and approve it, guess what they're going to do? If you set the expectation, I'm going to put that shit out there and we'll talk about it after, then they'll just go along with that, right? Like, hey, we're only open till 5 o'clock. Is that a problem for you? It doesn't make sense for them to call you at 7, right? It doesn't make sense. Hey, we're going to put out shit for you. And then if you want us to adjust like colors and blah, 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 we'll do that. But these are the things we're not going to touch because we know it works. Is that a problem for you? No, it's not. Okay, cool. You'll find clients are just way more compliant when you do this. And then, of course, what I need from you, right? If you're setting the expectation, what I need from you is approvals. Don't be surprised when they want approvals. If you're just saying, hey, I'm going to put shit out there and I'll let you know what's working, that's a different set of expectations. So I hope that's helpful to you guys because I pretty much made this mistake for 10 years, which is the only reason I can talk intelligently about it. And I learned all the best stuff from law firms. When I realized that, a lot of the top masterminds and stuff like that, I was like, man, 95% of your guys' struggles are our exact struggles. And I realized that, in fact, any sort of high-ticket service business, we all share these struggles. Like if you went to a plumbing business, it would be very similar growth and challenges, even though, they're cleaning shitty toilets and we're cleaning shitty websites. It's ultimately a different kind of deliverable, but at the same time, like there's more in common than different with high-ticket service businesses. We all struggle with expectations and selling and closing leads and following up and getting proposals and building teams and systems. It's all the same. And once you realize that, like I said, you can learn some of the best stuff from other peeps. So I hope that's helpful to you, because you really have an expectation setting problem in disguise. And if you just say on day one, this is how we do it, approvals are not part of our process, this is how we're going to proceed forward, is that a problem for you? They'll say, no, it's not. And then they won't ask you about it later. Travis says, what sort of profit percentage are you guys seeing on 7 figures? So this is kind of a loaded question here. Profits on 7 figures. So just so you guys know, like I've seen this a lot where people post, what kind of profit margins are you making? And people love to brag about their profit margins. The truth is, it depends a lot where you're at in the journey. So stage 1, when you're a solo freelancer and it's just you, like when the business is like literally one person and you're that person and you're doing everything, you're writing the copy, making the website, answering the client emails, selling it, delivering it. When you're that one person, your margin should be at least 80%, probably 90, even 100. You might have the occasional software or tool to assist you. And on stage 1, that's pretty normal, 80, 90%. As you begin to grow and you start to implement a small team, what I would call like small team Steve, and you have this let's say you have 4 or 5 virtual assistants, you're going to find your margins are probably more like 50, 60%, right? Like now you have more mouths to feed, but ultimately it's worth it for you because you buy back more of your time, which allows you to grow, which allows you to earn more. But ultimately the actual gross margin, meaning like if you get $2,000 a month from a client, you might only be keeping $1,100, $1,200 of that, right? And that's the nature of having a small team. When you start to reach stage 3, where you're actually functioning more as a manager and you have a whole team, it's normal to be anywhere from like 30 to 60%, depending on the size of your team. And then as you get even bigger than that, some of the highest grossing agencies, so I have friends who have $50 to $100 million a year agencies, like quite a few of them actually, and they're at like 10, 20%. So like if they're making 100 million, like the owner is keeping like 10 million of that. And just so you guys know, they stress out about money problems too, because 90 million in expenses every month, you're very aware, like, man, if we just had a bad month or there's some kind of Google update and we drop down to 80 million, I'd have to put 10 million a year into this business. So even though they're making 10 million, they don't feel like they're sitting pretty on it. I share that to you guys because if you understand that, it becomes easier to sell and to help them with those problems. But I say that to you because there's no one size fits all. But in the small levels, you should be keeping most of it, and then a more moderate amount as you grow, and then as you get bigger, there's a smaller and smaller amount, but if you do it right, you're buying back more and more of you and your time, and ultimately building a business that runs without you, which is the real magic to me anyway. So if you have that, then, I would be happy, I would be totally happy making 25% of a business that totally runs without me, but it depends on what you're going. So, but like I said, for most people, at probably the 7-figure mark, I'd say 25 to 50% is probably most typical, depending on what you guys do. Looks like this last question, if you guys got other questions, I haven't seen any so far, but we got Justin up who says, I just finished reading the book. I have been running my agency for 7 years now. I've gained a handful of recurring clients. The question I now have is that I don't know how to niche down. Do I start a new brand? I don't have more than one client in one industry. I have only clients in a broader industry, i.e. plumbers, electricians, roofers, and home services industry, or dentists, chiropractors, medical spa, and the health industry. If I had to start a new brand, my portfolio wouldn't be impressive enough for the new niche that I've chosen. What should I do? Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate any insight or feedback. So Justin, this is a thing that, by the way, comes up, I think, for a lot of us in this journey, is that ultimately you start with this generalist agency, which makes sense, right? In the beginning, you're just trying to get paid for anything, right? Somebody says, can you do a website? You're like, yeah, I can do a website. And you figure it out. And if somebody says, can you do pay-per-click? You figure it out. Somebody says, can you do SEO? You figure it out. But what ends up happening is you end up with this diverse roster of clients. As you mentioned, you might have one roofer you're doing SEO for and a heating and cooling place that you're running Google pay-per-click for, and you got a bankruptcy attorney that you're doing a website for, and an online coach that you're doing a little sales consulting with, and you get a little mixed bag of everything, whatever. Maybe helping an e-commerce place run Facebook ads just to keep it interesting. Okay, I wish I understood this. I'm going to give you guys a deeper mindset thing here that I think is ultimately really, really useful. And this is like a big part of the subject of book 2, which I'm just waiting on Jay Abraham to endorse the damn book. It's sitting on his desk, and then you guys will get your hands on it. So I believe that, I don't know if you guys have read Robert Kiyosaki, but all of this stuff applies digitally, and I wish I understood that years ago. But if you're poor, like when I was poor, just so you guys know, like I was just trying to make enough money to get drunk on the weekend. If I had enough money to get drunk on Friday night, like I was winning at life. That was my goal when I was poor. When I was middle class, I was trying to work for a salary and some benefits and things like that. And ultimately, when you become wealthy, what you want to do is you want to own and control things that have real monetary value. Okay? And it's the things you own and control that pay you, not the work. And so I say that because I believe the way most people structure agency services, especially the generalist, is really middle class thinking in disguise. Right? It's like saying, how can I sell a service for a salary, and instead of one boss, you have 100 bosses, or however many clients it is that you have. For me, that peaked at about 150 bosses. And what happens is, when you make the shift to being wealthy, is you decide you want to own and control things. Now, digital assets, by the way, which I believe is the real game, is owning and controlling digital assets. Digital assets have a very unique property that a lot of real-world assets do not possess. Right? So if you think a real-world asset, like owning a home can be a real-world asset, or owning a business can be a real-world asset, or owning stocks and bonds can be a real-world asset. Like, those are just a couple examples. I'm just throwing them out just so you guys get the idea. But one of the things is, if you own a home, you cannot just copy and paste that and like do it again. You can't have a home and go Control-C or Command-C for you, all you heathenist Mac users. But you can't go copy, paste, and make a new home and continue renting it. And so this is the mental shift that has to occur, which is thinking about going from doing something once and getting paid for it once to doing something once and getting paid for it 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, for something that's been created once. And so what that means is, for you, is I believe the best place to go from generalist to specialist is to clone one of your existing clients that you loved working for and is super happy, and think about, how could I expand this to more people? Right? So for example, I'll give you an example of the contrast. Okay, so my first agency was kind of specialized, but it was also kind of generalized, to be honest with you, because I mostly did SEO for plastic surgeons. But the truth was, anybody who showed up with a credit card, like, I pretty much said yes to. I ain't gonna lie to you guys. Like, I saw it as no money was bad money. And so if somebody said, can you do SEO? I did it. I had a bankruptcy attorney. I had some med spas in there. I had some like various like foot doctors and shit I knew very little about. And I had I had an eye doctor, a LASIK guy, and shit like that. And they all had different things. One of them wanted a WordPress website, and I said yes to everybody. And there's a hidden metric in it called energy. And every time you get a new client, you get a new custom problem to solve, there's a spike of energy, especially on the delivery and fulfillment side. Like, it's just a lot of fucking work, right? And so I was constantly trying to find new freelancers on Upwork, and freelancer.com is a thing, and Fiverr, and trying to find people that could kind of do it on a budget. And almost always you feel like you're trying to pull off miracles for clients. They're paying you $1,000 for a website, and you got to find a good designer for $500. Like that felt like miracle work, finding somebody who could actually do it. And so I was like constantly doing all this work. Now my second agency was far more specialized. We were one of the first people to run Facebook ads for personal injury lawyers. I don't know if we were the first. We were the first ones that I knew doing it. So like, I don't know, in my world we were the first, but I'm sure somebody else got the same idea at the same time. I mean, Facebook ads wasn't exactly like, unheard of or anything like that. But anyways, the reason I tell you that is because that's all we did. If somebody came along and said, can you design a website? I said, no, but I will refer you to somebody who can. If somebody said, do you guys run Google ads? I said, no, but I can refer you to someone who can. If somebody said, do you do this for bankruptcy attorneys? I said, no, but I will refer you to someone who does. And so what happened is we only had to worry about one thing, running Facebook ads for attorneys. And so what would happen is I viewed like having 20, in the beginning, 25 client accounts as a test. Like where I could test like I essentially had a big budget. And so I would sometimes try test ads across like 20 different clients. And when we found one that worked, we just copied and pasted it to everybody. Right? So I wasn't solving 20 different problems. I was actually solving one problem and being paid for it 20 times. And I'll tell you that make delivery and easier, fulfillment a lot easier. We had some other challenges and stuff with like hiring and media buyers and things like that. But I'll tell you, like our deliverable was fundamentally 100 times simpler because I was doing 100 times less things because I was doing once and getting paid 25 times for solving one problem 25 different times. So I say this to you guys because if you're trying to go from being a generalist to a specialist, you don't have to invent some new brand. You don't have to discover some new niche. Just take a look at your client roster. Look at these are the clients who suck. These are the clients who we liked. Take your top 3, 4, or 5 clients you really liked, and your niche is in there. Just you got paid for it once already. Now you got to get paid for that same thing 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And this is a fundamental shift because you have to start thinking about how do I get paid for the assets I already have? And that means you're reusing landing pages, you're reusing ads, you're reusing targeting, you're reusing content. You ain't coming up with the shit brand new. If you got a website that works, you're reusing it. If you got an email follow-up system, like we had a year and a half's worth of email follow-ups and retargeting. Do you think every client got a fucking new version of that? Fuck no, right? The only thing we changed is we updated the lawyer's picture, their phone number, and their brand colors, right? So like, and their logo, I guess. So it looked different every time, but it was the same damn ad every single time, 25 times over, copy and paste. And I'll tell you, I wish I knew this earlier, but 50 clients, 50 clients in a specialized agency where you're doing once and getting paid twice is easier than 5 clients as a generalist. And I wish I knew that earlier, but I'm telling you, you're working so much harder than you need to because every time you get hired, there's a new energy spike where you have to figure out how to solve a custom problem. As where when you're doing the same thing over and over, you get to reuse stuff, right? Like, so the first time I had to create a landing page for this lawyer and a new ad that worked and copy and test and creatives and follow-up campaigns, like that's a lot of work. That's an energy spike. Second time though, I just reused the same thing for the last guy. And the third time, it gets even easier. And eventually, we had systems and processes, so I wasn't even doing the little bit of work. So, like, you know, our virtual assistants are updating the ads and updating the landing pages and updating the email copy and things like that. So it eventually got for us, like, we had a year and a half's worth of email follow-ups, and I had a custom field in the bottom of the email called signature. And so the email would be the exact same for every lawyer, and then I would just copy and paste it from one list to another, and then it would update the signature field, which would automatically update it through, like, I don't know, 50 or 100 follow-up emails, and we could just reuse this shit. And then eventually we had VAs do it, so it was like 30 seconds of work done by a VA for us to put a year and a half's worth of follow-up emails. And this is the piece I wish I knew, okay? The most, it's actually more valuable for your clients, because they would rather buy an existing working system that can be copied and pasted into their account than hire you to do a custom problem. Compare 2 websites, for example. The generalist, I will solve your problem and figure it out, middle class way of thinking. Hire me, and I'm going to build you a website, custom website, and we're going to go back and forth, and I will keep updating it until you're happy with it. And that usually, by the way, takes 3 to 6 months. That's custom. Hey, I got this website. It's already crushing it for 3 different plumbers over here. And if you like, I can just go ahead and copy and paste that and swipe it, deploy in your account so that you'll start getting qualified phone calls for your plumbing business. It's ready to go. Just say go, and I'll have it up and running in your account within the hour. Which one of those do you think is a more exciting promise? And the difference, by the way, the underlying fundamental of that is in the first scenario, you're selling you and your ability to solve problems and do custom work, which is like a middle-class person. Like, as an engineer, I got paid to solve stupid machine problems. I sucked at it, but that's what they paid me for, right? Like, that was the deal. As where when you think like a wealthy person, you're like, I own a system, and I would like to lease my system to you. And the way I compare this to people, like say you're doing Facebook ads, would you rather have a $2,500 per month Facebook ad client, or would you rather own a system that clients are paying $2,500 per month for that uses Facebook ads? If you're smart, you'll take the system. And so that's the shift you have to make from being a generalist to a specialist, is you have to start thinking, I want to own reusable systems. I do not want to be Mr. or Mrs. Custom where I'm doing shit all the time, because all that Mr. Custom left me with was 80-hour work weeks, constant demands on my time. I still, to this day, I have what I call inbox PTSD. And what that means for me is when I log into my email, I'm like, there was a period where I was like just a little bit stressed out because there were like always fires and shit to put out. And so even today, like 20 years later, when I check my inbox, I almost half expect there just to be a mountain of shit to deal with. It's not there today, but I still have the PTSD of just like, can you call me? Can we do this? And what happens with the specialist thing, your operation runs faster and your speed to implementation is 100 times faster, because I already had the ad written before you signed up as a client, right? So it just takes us 5 minutes to update your details and publish it. And so like within an hour, we can be up and running from the time you say go. And so I say this to you guys because if you're going from generalist to specialist, there's always the fear, if I give up all this other stuff, I'll lose money and I won't have my brand. And now as far as your second issue that you mentioned, that you won't have all the testimonials and case studies and things like that. I'm not going to lie, that is a bit of a loss, but I'll tell you, the thing that sells your work more than anything else is that you know what to do after somebody will say yes. So in the beginning, by the way, like just to take you through my own personal arc that kind of illustrates this point, in the beginning, I had all these attorneys that would say to me, hey, Frankie, this sounds really, really good. Can you just share like 2 or 3 other attorneys that I can talk to that have done this with you, so I can feel a little bit more comfortable about it? And I had no attorneys that I could send them to because I was brand new and I was starting in a new niche, and I knew nobody, and it was like, fuck, it kept breaking it. And then eventually we did sign a few, and eventually we had some case studies, and then I started leaning really, really hard on those, and I would say, okay, here's my case study, talk to this attorney. And of course, you send them to the same guy who's happy with you again and again. You don't send them to your worst client, you send them to your happiest client and let them do some of the closing for you. But eventually what I realized, it was being used as an excuse to not decide. And then so they reached a point where we actually had hundreds of case studies. And people would be like, hey, can we have a case study? And I would say, or can we talk to another attorney? I'd say, no. They said, why not? And I'd say, well, all we found is that just slows down our clients. They're busy. They're attorneys. They got going stuff. They're already working 80 hours a week. They don't need to be answering calls from you. If you're a no, that's totally cool. We'll tell you no. But what's most important is I want to tell you what we want to do for you. If that makes sense to you, I'll just show you right now what we're going to do for you. Forget any other attorney in existence, because it doesn't really matter if it's worked for 100 other ones. All that you're interested in is that it's going to work for you. And so I suggest to you that what they're really buying is confidence in certainty in your plan and your ability to execute it after they hire you. And if you've done this a bunch, you have that. You really do have that. And you can say, no, I will not show you my case studies. And they'll still buy it, by the way. Ask me how I know that. So I say that to you guys because I don't think you have to have all the pieces that everybody thinks you have to have. So looks like, by the way, that's all the questions we got for today, unless you guys got something you want to post in the comments real quick. Just a quick little announcement, and just something that I've been working on behind the scenes is, especially for those of you guys, I know I put out some courses and some tools like that. I have been working behind the scenes to turn everything we do into a series of AI prompts and libraries so that it can be executed like literally thousands of times faster than what we had to do historically. So that means, for example, like for those of you guys who bought our Loom course, we teach you a process how to sell through videos so you don't actually have to talk to people. Well, we're getting pretty detailed prompts so that now you'll be able to like put in your prompts and like generate your own Loom video kind of slides in under like 2 minutes, instead of having it to be like, this hour training and try it and try and figure this detail out. Is like literally, and what we figured out is that the more and more examples we can feed the AI, the better and better it'll do first time. And obviously, like, the detail of the prompt, but a lot of it is just giving it context. Like, here's 27 other converting Loom videos. Now use this as the basis to create 28. And so we're turning everything we do into like AI shortcuts. so that anything you guys are trying to do in an agency, doesn't matter whether it's onboarding or hiring VAs or putting stuff out there or making sales pitches or creating content, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, is that you can follow our formulas and frameworks like super, super, super easy, and also have them be customized and personalized to you, and just using like free tools with ChatGPT. So we're really building out that library because, to be honest with you, I was resistant to this a lot because in the beginning, I don't know how you guys feel, but I can tell when people post ChatGPT content, like all the fucking emojis, and it's just long-winded. Like, there's a lot of stuff out there that I can just tell is written by ChatGPT. And to be honest with you, I don't think a lot of it's very good. So I'm like, I've been resistant. And a couple of people really helped me recently. Shout out to Jonathan Mass, the bearded AI wizard, as well as Jeff Hunter. And they were showing me that a lot of the reason people struggle with AI is they don't give it enough context. They don't give it enough backstory. So like in Jeff's case, he has like 3 or 4 years of his best posts archived, and he also has 100 of the top copywriting examples. And so they feed his best posts and the best AI or the best copywriting, and then use that as the basis to then create more content. And then what happens is the AI is actually pretty fucking good. It doesn't read like your usual ChatGPT. And so I figured out with our stuff that the more and more we just feed it lots and lots and lots and lots of working examples, the better it'll be to actually like create stuff that is on point the first time. And so that's what I'm really excited to share with you guys, because we're getting a whole makeover in the Wolfpack right now that I've been working on for the next little bit, so that literally everything we do is like just easier to implement, closer to click a button and answer a question or two, and then have the AI get it, maybe not 100%, but 90% of the way finished. And for those of you guys who bought courses over the years, that's what we're doing. And part of the reason I'm doing this, just so you guys know, is I need it for myself, because like there's some things I'm having my VAs doing and things like that, and I just need to build it for them, for our own internal processes. And I thought, like, why not build it for everybody in a way where if I have to create, video script and format, like why not create video script and format for you? If I have to create follow-up thing or onboarding, why not create it for you guys? Because I have tons of like working examples, and so like using that, kind of with the AI form is just going to be, I think, super sexy. And I see my man Abe's here. Anyways, so I'm excited to share that with you, all you guys who bought courses and stuff for me over the years. I will be sending an announcement when your piece is the ready. Give me a few weeks, but I will be letting you guys know when your piece, like, for the Loom videos and for example, so that you can get AI to like just really help you build it. So anyways, that's the future. The future is now, is we're taking processes that are already working and now shortening the implementation time to actually get those built and operational and working. And I'm super excited about it, because I feel like for a lot of the things people are using AI for, I just don't think it's as useful as some of the things that we're working on. I think it's like literally just the cutting edge of what's in the agency space. So, like we have some old processes that work, but like, being able to do it in 2 minutes instead of 10 days is a game changer. So anyways, when we have those guys ready, you guys will see me in your inbox announcing when your pieces are ready. Anything, we've got a whole bunch of courses in the members area, the 7-figure soup to nuts, the Loom course, the swipe file for revenue share deals, as well as, I'm just like thinking off the top of my head, I don't even know which courses I have. Shout out to Sam Whalen who made those, because I don't even remember all the courses I have. And the raising your prices and all that. Like, we're just going to build a lot of tools and pieces that'll make your life easier for that. Okay, we got one more question from Jacob. Jacob says, when you decide to add on another niche that is totally separate than the one you were in, but the service delivery is similar. So let me tell you just kind of how I think about that. I don't know if you were on a second ago when I was talking about assets. The biggest thing for me is really, really simple. I'll tell you the difference between that is a green, shiny object distraction versus, hey, that opportunity actually makes a lot of sense. And it's very, very simple. Using the tools, resources, and swipe files I already have is 90% of the work already done. And if the answer is yes, then you have my seal of approval to go for it. If the answer is no, then don't do it. So I know conventional wisdom says only do one thing and focus on that one thing till the end of time, and if you don't, you're a fucking distracted entrepreneur. And I hate to tell you, my experience is like we're just all fucking distracted. It's going to happen. And so having a way to filter those opportunities makes sense. So I have a friend like Matt Larson. Some of you guys have seen the stuff we did together. He wholesales real estate and done entirely through virtual assistants. And Matt owns 12, count them, 12 functioning businesses. Now here, when I asked Matt this is a private conversation we had. I was like, Matt, like how on fucking God's green earth can you manage 12 different businesses when the rest of us are struggling just to do one? And Matt said, it's not really 12 different businesses because there's a whole bunch of shared materials between them. So for example, all of them are in the real estate industry. So he has like, a real estate wholesaling business. He has a virtual assistant wholesaling business where he supplies people with virtual assistants. He has a property management company. They have a dumpster diving business. He has a window manufacturing. And all of it is under the same umbrella. And one of the things he said is, well, it's literally for a lot of our stuff, it's the same customer list. Like the same person who buys property management from us is the same person who buys an investment property, is the same person who buys the virtual wholesaling. So like the customer list is a shared thing. He also said because the businesses are similar enough, he doesn't have to hire a different manager for every business. Sometimes he has one manager managing 4 different businesses because they're all related. And so like for me, I'm able to manage agency clients and an agency mastermind because 90% of the assets are shared between them. So it's not really 2 different things, not in my mind, right? Like if I have to onboard a client, then, and I can create tools that help other people onboard clients, I'm not really doing 2 different things. I'm just doing one thing with the intention of like reusing it twice. So I say that to you guys because if there's a way for like 90% of the stuff to be shared, go for it. I actually don't think it's a shiny object at all. In many ways, all you're doing is more deeply serving the clients and customers you have. Where almost always it's a shiny object and distraction, the opposite of everything I just said, is when people go, hey, like almost always, as soon as the business starts to get hard, that's when the shiny, easier, greener pasture starts looking really good. And almost always it's not actually shinier, it's not easier. And if it's greener, it won't stay greener for very long. Because most of the shit that works in a timeless sense is like it's actually work. It's like it's work, right? I don't know how else to explain that, right? And so what happens is, like, for example, I see this with a certain type of agency owner where they'll try for dentists for like 2 months and they send cold emails and all they do is get ignored. And after 2 months they go, well, dentist is too saturated. I'm going to go try plumbers. And then they try plumbers, and it turns out plumbers are hard. And then they go, you know what? I'm going to do online coaches. Like those are more my people. And then online coaches is hard. And then they go, I'm going to do, I'm gonna work SaaS companies. Oh, SaaS. I'm gonna start a Go High Level SaaS. Oh, that's too hard. I'm gonna build an AI chatbot. And they just hop from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing, looking for something easier. But there's a journey you have to go through with whatever market you serve, where you actually have to learn to talk like one of them, and think like one of them, and understand where they're coming from. And what happens is, if you're trying to break through a dentist and then you start over with plumbers are a whole new language. Like, we have our own language, just so you guys know. If I say GHL or SEO or PPC, like, you guys know what I'm talking about. But I promise you, like, my family was sitting at the dinner table with us and we said, hey, is that a GHL SaaS? They would not understand what we just said. And every industry is like that, right? So if you don't commit to actually learning the client or the customer, you start over. So the flip side of that is, it's a shiny object when you meet resistance, almost always just because you don't speak their language. That's why you're meeting the resistance. You don't fundamentally understand what it is they're really after. And then you go, I'm going to do something easier, and then you just hop from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing. And we're all guilty of that to a certain extent. So I'm not like, if that's you, Jacob, or anyone else listening to this, I'm not throwing stones at you. Like, I've been guilty of that too many, many times over the years. So, like, I'm not picking on anyone in particular, but I'm just saying it makes a lot of sense when the assets are reusable, and it doesn't make a lot of sense when, oh, it's hard, so I'm going to go look for something easier. But to me, I think a big part of the wealth journey is getting more leverage out of the digital assets you have, right? It's like getting more uses out of the things and the tools in the swipe file that are working for you. So it all kind of just depends. I'm just reading the comments here. Abe says, half is hard to manage, forget one business to manage. Exactly. Jacob says, hey, I focus on carpet cleaning, but a lot of assets are similar to house cleaning, so it makes more sense to add on other types of cleaning companies. For sure, especially if you can, like there's overlap. So, like, we have people, for example, that are doing karate schools and have added on dance schools because, like, selling classes or group classes. It's like pretty much the same shit. So like, it doesn't dilute your stuff too much. The opposite. It's like you can reuse 95% of that. So I think in your case it makes a lot of sense. Just don't do it because like a lot of people go, "Oh, it's hard over here, so I'm going to try something else." That's the wrong reason to do it. The right reason to do it is, hey, I have this digital asset that's working over here. How can I get more use, more functionality, and help more people with it? That's the right reason to do it. And then you'll find that you'll find more uses out of the shit you got. If you want to actually make more money, by the way, anybody here, like the most fundamental easy way to do this is take inventory of all the digital assets you have and then ask yourself how else they could be used, and inevitably that is like cash for someone else. Like literally finding more uses out of the stuff you have. So like in my case, like I just think like I have an onboarding swipe file. Well, how many different service businesses like have to onboard? Very similar to like what we do, right? Like any sort of high ticket service, whether it's an accountant, a plumber, a dentist, doctor, lawyer, whatever, they all have like onboarding. So I'm not planning on doing that, just because that sounds like too much work for me. But ultimately, if I wanted to get paid more, like retrofitting the onboarding process we already have to work in other places, like I would make more money out of that. So I share that with you guys because like you guys are probably sitting on assets that like just getting more use out of them will get you paid. But I think in your case, Jacob, that for me at least is a thumbs up and not a shiny object. So anyways. Appreciate you guys. That's all I got. That's enough rambling from this old man yelling at cloud. Abe, if you're still on, let's catch up in like 2-3 minutes. I just got to send off some of the show notes here to my VA and send a screenshot. And then other than that, we're ready to go. Appreciate you guys all. Happy Monday. Much love. May the force be with you. Hey guys, if you like this video, you'll probably also like our free Facebook group, Beyond Agency Profits, Agency Lifestyle Design. You can get free copies of the book inside here. I look ridiculous. We're doing weekly Q&As, giving answers to all your questions. Some of the best, smartest, brightest people. We've got lots of industry leaders doing 7, 8 figures and beyond. It's a literal who's who of the brightest agency owners that I know, as well as lots of tips on scaling and stuff, books that work. So if you're not already part of it, you're going to want to be part of it. So make sure to click the link. I put it in the description of the video as well as in the pinned top comment below. So just scroll down and you can join, and it's totally free.